Hey, and welcome back to the Silhouette Studio series on how to get started with your silhouette portrait. This is David, your host, and here we are back. We're starting off today with the grid. Now, the grid is right over here in the top right corner. Now, you may notice something a little different about my screen. There's actually something here. This is our friend Rick from Rick and Morty. I vectorized him just the other day, and I wanted to go ahead and share him with you guys. And we're going to use him as an example on how to set up and distribute and kind of get your graphics in the place that you want to be. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on him here. So let's talk a little bit about graphics here for a moment. I brought Rick in from a program called Adobe Illustrator. Now, Adobe Illustrator is a very highly leading industry um, software for graphics professionals, and I use Adobe Illustrator daily. And the it is a very complex program, but at the same time, it is very easy to use. I would liken this program to a very basic version of Adobe Illustrator, but with the functions that it has for your cutting vinyl and whatever else you can think of here. But just to give you a heads up here, coming up in later tutorials, I will be going over a little bit more on Adobe Illustrator and how to set up vector files. But right now, we're just going to quickly talk about how this graphic and how it's going to work for the project that I want. Okay, so first of all, we're just going to, so say you import any graphic, okay? You're going to have a little bit of this happening where you have various objects at different sizes and different dimensions. Now, this is not connected. So if I happen to make a very, very novice move here by moving something, that's going to be very hard to put back exactly where it was. You do have the undo button, which I'm going to click now, just to go ahead and put that back where it was. Okay. Now, what I want to do first is verify that all of my pieces here have been grouped together. Now, grouping is basically keeping all the pieces where they are. They don't move around, they don't change. So they stay where they are, they scale proportionately, nothing no variations, things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and click. First of all, let me just go back here. Let me show you a little thing I do that probably will help you in later in later uh, workings with the program. Okay, so right here, I'm going to go to my reveal and I'm going to drop this down a little bit. Okay, this is going to help you. Okay, it might not seem like it yet, but just bear with me. So I'm going to jump back over here to my graphic and see where these outside lines are. They're just outside of the graphic, the whole size of the graphic. What I want to do is use that to kind of estimate where my mouse needs to be, because I'm going to click here and I'm going to drag and I'm going to grab everything that's a part of this graphic at one time. Okay. Now I can do this a couple different ways. If you're using a Mac or PC command, you can use the Command G function, which I'm going to do right now. That will group everything together. Now I'm going to undo that and I'm going to show you how to do it here. So you can go right over here to File. I'm sorry. Where are you? Oh, there you are. An Object, under Group, hit Group. And you can also see here too, this comes up. You can see the command right over here on the left-hand side. I'm sorry, right-hand side. And you can go ahead and see what you could use on your keypad here to make a group or here to ungroup. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the symbols here, the ungroup here is Shift Command or Control. Command. Yeah, Shift Command G, and then to group, it's just Command G. So I'm going to go ahead and use Shift Command G right now, so you can see how this works. Shift Command G, and you can see all these boxes reappear all around the graphic. So we're just going to go back to grouping it again, keeping it the way I wanted it to. Now, the one thing to keep in mind, if you do have separate pieces that you have trouble, you have trouble grabbing them, just make sure that you are going outside of the object. So, meaning go as far out as you can and just select that piece. Now, because of this program, the way it works is that you have to select the entirety of the area that you need to select to actually grab it. Now, it seems like, oh, what if I can just touch it? You know, I just drag over it and touch it, and that doesn't quite work. You have to grab the entire thing. Um, some programs do behave a little bit differently with this type of a tool, but for this in Silhouette Studio, this is how you actually have to use it. So, that being said, now we can move on. Today we're going to learn a little bit more about the other tools here. We're going to start off with our grid. Now, I did drop my opacity here. I'm going to bring that back up real quick to show you guys a little bit more about how the grid works. So I'm pull this back up to 0, going over to the grid. Now, right now, none of these are clicked or highlighted or changed here. So I'm going to go ahead and click Show Grid. Now, this shows me spacing of 1 inch and divisions of 1. Now, what this means is this is a 8.5 by 11, and then you can see how half of these squares on the right hand side are showing. That's your half mark, and your full marks over here. Okay, so you count these out: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5. Same thing going down for 11. Okay, now this will give you a better better way to snap things to get more accurate on where you need to position something. And then what you can also do is you can hit snap to grid, which this will allow you to move the object specifically in this increment over here. Okay, so it will only move over by 1 inch increments. See how that kind of jumps? That's what it's doing. So right now I can actually change these though. This is the great thing about this tool. So you can change this up. So say instead of a 1 inch spacing, I want a 1/4 inch spacing. So that's 0.25. So you can see how it splits up and makes several small squares here. And I can also change the color. So if the blue is too harsh, you can always drop that down to like a gray, black. I mean, just depending on what you particularly makes it easy for you to see it. I'll stick with yellow, seems a little bit easier to see. And as you can tell, by moving this around, I'm only moving in 1/4 inch increments. So if I had a piece of vinyl and I only had a very, very limited amount, I would want to probably use this tool, measure out my piece, and verify where it's located, and make sure that my piece, my art, fits precisely in the area that I need. By using this tool, this will actually guide you in creating and making that decision, much more efficiently. Now, we talked about spacing. We also have divisions. So before I start in divisions, I'm going to bring this up to 2 inches, and then I'm going to increase this division by 2. Now, you can barely see it because it's yellow, so I'm going to change over to a different color. You can see a little bit better with the blue. These have now been split into 1 inch segments. So now I have 1 inch and full 2 inch sections to move to. Okay, So if I split this up again, obviously it divides my box now, my two by two, into um, 9 different boxes. Again, giving me a little bit more, you know, options to move around. So you can just keep increasing these divisions as many times as you need to get what you're looking for, and you will gain more and more control of the preciseness of your location by using that. So that's basically the grid. Now, the isometric here basically changes it up for you like this. And I honestly don't know if this is a very useful tool, especially for just plotting vinyl. You still have the ability to change your actual location on this by not using the grid at all. So you do have that option. Isometric obviously just gives you an isometric view of what you're actually working on. How this is going to be used, we will go over more in detail as we continue on in the tutorials. So we're going to go back to Square now and leave this the way it is, and we're going to just drop this back to 1 and 1. And that's where we're going to leave this off at. Okay, moving on. You'll notice that there's 2 more tools that we're going to pass over today. First one being the Open Emboss window, which says right here requires the Silhouette CAMEO, which we will not be going over today. And then the next tool over here is the Stipple window, which also requires the CAMEO. And so we're going to skip those over today and come back to those at another time. Now we're going to go to Cut Settings. And here we are in our cut settings now. There are going to be various options here for you. So we're just going to slowly go through these, so not to overwhelm, but to take it easy and generally ease you into this, okay? So it can get complicated because there are various things that you can do, but I'm here to guide you into the ways that will get you to achieve a decal cut out of vinyl for your first time. So this is primarily what this course is about. Okay. Now, right here, we have cut conditions. Now I'm going to bring that window up right now so you can see that there's 2 settings here, cut conditions and advanced. So we're going to go over cut conditions first. And also up here, you'll notice that there are these 2 little triangular, a blue triangular area and a red triangular area. Now, as you can tell, this image changed by clicking those 2 things, okay? This is just a variation on what you're seeing. It doesn't change the actual cut. It doesn't change really anything other than visually for you to see what's happening on your screen. Okay, keep that in mind. Red basically is good to see that that is what's going to be cut. Okay, and this will just bring you back to your normal editable view that you've been working with the entire time. So we're going to keep that in red, and we're going to move down to the cut conditions now. Currently right now it's set as standard, okay? For the majority of your projects, this is probably where it's going to be. Now to click on advanced, you will get some more options, okay? Now you can choose the cut order. So in this scenario, we will not be needing a cut order. So we will not need a line color or a fill color. We're only going to be using one color for this, okay? When we go into multiple colors, this can come in handy. So right now, these are just set up as line color as black and fill color as no color, which is entirely what I want. Right here, material says I'm set up as copy paper, which is fine, but that's going to change. So I'm going to click this, I'm going to scroll down and check here my material type. Currently selected for the fill color. Now, what does this mean? Okay, so if I go back to the line color click on this, and then I'm going to change this to vinyl. Okay, so that's my line color. My fill color is also going to be set to vinyl. Okay, so this just verifies for the machine that this is the type of thing that you're going to be cutting. Okay, vinyl obviously can come in various different brands and thicknesses, so you do want to refer to the type of vinyl that you're using for any project prior to setting your actual material type. Okay, we're going to go over the standard vinyl type, which is basically any Oracal 651, um, any intermediate brand vinyl. You're looking for, I believe, a thickness of about 3 mils, and all this information should be on whatever type of vinyl that you've chosen to use. Based on those settings or on those details that you do receive with your vinyl, that is how you're going to determine what to cut. So as we go on, we're going to go down here and we're going to choose the blade type. Right now, we're only using the ratchet blade. This is the blade that came with your machine, okay? You may click down here, you can see other types of blades and also a sketch pen option. We're only going to stay with our ratchet blade because that's the only thing we're going to be using, and that's what came with our machine. And now, if your machine came in a bundle or something like that, and this is not covering those things for you right now, don't worry, we will cover those things later on, but this is just for the basic things that have come with the machine, even if you bought it straight from Silhouette without any bundles or any vinyls or extra knives or anything like that, okay? Now we're going to go down to speed. Now this is going to be more of a fine tuning for you as the operator of the machine. So as you're working, you'll figure out a best type of speed for your vinyl and for your project. See, my project here, looking at Rick having a drink here, he's just bummed out about science. So my speed for him in just cutting him out of vinyl, I'm going to probably stick around the 5 centimeters a second. That's what this stands for, the cm/s. So that's what you want to look at, and you want to think to yourself, okay, if it takes 1 second to go 5 centimeters, and count 1 Mississippi, that's how long it takes. Okay, so if you need to go a little bit slower for a little bit more details, maybe drop this down to like a 1. Or I'm sorry, you increase it. I apologize. You would increase it. So maybe you go 7 centimeters a second on a very not on a very basic type of a thing. Okay, and you would go a little bit slower on a more complicated thing. So um, for Rick here, I would probably go like on a 2 or maybe even a 1 because I really want to make sure the blade takes its time and doesn't jump up too quick and move around. Because as you progressively learn with this program and the machine, you'll need to just kind of play a balancing game. Sometimes the vinyl will get stuck. Sometimes you'll have a bad cut. Sometimes you'll need to stop the machine right in the middle of a job and start over again. When these things happen, try not to get upset because it happens to everyone. It happens to me constantly, I can tell you that. But you do get better over time. You get to kind of warn yourself beforehand and get a better idea of what to expect during your cutting time. So the main thing I'm trying to get at here is do take your time, experiment. Always be prepared to do a test first and make sure that your cut is going to be accurate and that the time you're setting for the speed and the thickness of your actual material is set up also to the correct thickness. Now, thickness here is, from what the default settings here we're going with vinyl. It's setting the thickness at 10. I would leave that as it is because the people, the people behind Silhouette do have a very wide experience level with machines like this. So I would recommend that you do stay with the thickness that is offered. It does change for the different types of material you choose, so please just try those out and see which one actually works best for you. Moving down, you have the double cut. The double cut is exactly what it means. It will cut it twice. So if you feel like your vinyl might be a little too thick, or maybe your details aren't coming out the way you want them to, maybe something's getting snagged as you're cutting, or maybe you're getting, little variations, try double cutting. Double cutting will just verify that that blade went all the way through that vinyl and that you're more guaranteed to have an easier weed, which is basically the removal of the vinyl from the backer, and then also giving you a cleaner surface to work with as you're applying any transfer tape. Because what happens is that the blade itself will actually groove into the paper, not cut all the way through, because that's what your settings are for. You're not trying to cut through the paper. You're trying to just cut the vinyl on top of the paper. And then you're going to allow the, the, the blade to make a groove into the paper too. And that'll allow actually a cleaner weeding, uh, weeding area for you that will give you better outcomes in the future. But that's only if you're having trouble. If your vinyl settings are doing well, you don't necessarily need to do the double cut, and realize that doing a double cut will double your time. Just keep that in mind. Okay, I'm going to unclick the double cut. And then right here, line segment overcut. Now this is an interesting tool because on even professional tools, this isn't always available. So this is really great. I'm glad Silhouette put this in here. What this does is on on rectangular and endpoints and things like that that end outside of a graphic area, it'll actually cut a little bit beyond it, allowing again for a much easier weed and to pull off from the backer paper. Now, it's more of a technique you learn over time, but this is definitely something that's useful. So if you're having a hard time, maybe your graphic, even after double cutting, is still not coming out just right, try the line segment overcut and put it on and see exactly where that segment needs to go, and maybe you need to increase it, which you can come down here to the overcut settings and actually adjust based on the information that you have. Okay, so that'll just give you a little bit of something to work with in case you're having trouble. So right now I'm just going to put these back to 0 and I'm going to turn this off. And then I'm going to go down here. The very last button here in the settings, the first part, is the test cut. You will click this, and what will happen is you will actually cut a square and a triangle in your on your blade on your vinyl. So once your machine is loaded with vinyl, which we will also go up and set up, this will be a great test to do first and foremost. I would recommend doing this every time just to make sure your settings are correct, and this will give you more of a warm fuzzy feeling that you're actually cutting the right stuff at the right speed and at the right depth and pressure. Now moving on, we're going to go to the advanced section here. Now these are maybe not necessarily things you need to worry about too much, but if you really are concerned and would like this to happen, feel free. So we're going to talk about the feed options. So return to origin or feed. Now, if you click on feed, you will actually see an advance option come out. Now, what happens here is that it will feed out towards the back end of the plotter further than the actual origin. Now, you'll have to play with this too. This is just one of those things where you just have to see how it works for you. Right here is return to origin, which is standard. What will happen is that your blade will essentially just come back to where it started. which will feed everything back towards you again. And usually everything starts off in the top left-hand corner and works down. And then as it's finished, it'll come right back up, feeding this out and ending up right back in that top left corner again. Now the cut line sorting is you can minimize the roller movement, you can maximize speed, or no sort. I honestly would probably go to minimize roller movement. So this would actually reduce the amount of times that the rollers need to go up and down, which essentially starts you off in a very, how should I say this, top-down approach. So it will cut everything up here and work its way down and keep cutting until it's completely done. And then it'll come back up at the origin. So this is reducing the ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs that many plotters may do. This option alone actually eliminates a lot of that up and down, which can actually set your graphic, I guess, offset it slightly, so you don't have maybe the same consistency in that graphic. If you're doing multiples, you might see some look a little bit different than others. Maybe a thickness of a line is slightly different than another side. It's variance like that that can cause issues, but if that's if that's not a problem for you, then obviously maximize speed would probably be the option that you would use. If you just need to cut it and get it done, that's the way to go. No sort is basically allowing the computer to generate whatever pattern it needs to determine how to cut it itself. So that's leaving it to the machine to decide the best way to cut it. So that's what we have here for our cut settings. Now, if you enjoy this video and you're learning something here, please feel free to share this with your friends and other craft people that you may be involved with. I really want to share this knowledge, and I'm putting this out there for free because I know how difficult it is to get started in this, and I don't want to leave anybody that's interested, that's curious, and that people that just want some general information that want to decide whether or not to move forward or pull the trigger on getting a plotter or even moving forward in this direction at all. So these are just the background pieces of what you'll need to know to actually start a decal cutting business / hobby. Now, further on down in the sessions as we go, I will be offering more freebies and also some tools and tips. And if you stick with me through the entire course, you will be given a nice little freebie at the very end, which is going to be your PDF guide that will actually hold all the information, maybe not all the information, but definitely the top tips I have for you on setting up your silhouette and getting started. So right now, I'm going to let you guys go, and I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.